Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to if you're new here. Today we are finally going to talk about probably the most requested story time. And before actually getting into the story, I do want to make sure that I point out that if you are going through something that I'm about to describe, or if you're currently in it, or if you might have been in it in the past, or you're not really sure but you feel like that you might be going through something like this. I wasn't a Christian then. I didn't know how to handle this situation then. I didn't understand the power in Jesus' name and who I was involved with at that time and what they were doing and the effect that it had on me, even though I wasn't participating, really had a huge effect on me. Because even though this happened from when I was 19 to 20, a lot of the really tough stuff happened for a year. I still had an ongoing attachment to this type of darkness where up until the day I said the sinner's prayer, I was being affected, which was like 6-7 years after I really didn't have a proper disconnect to what happened to me. So if you are currently in that position, even if you don't believe in Jesus, when I tell you that there's power in his name, there really is, and you don't have to believe in him for him to be there and for him to be powerful. You are currently in that position, use his name. I promise you it will help you. Okay, so this is going back to when I was 19 years old. I had just moved to a new city, a big city, which I'm not from a big city, and I was going to college. At this time, I was seeing my ex, who we're gonna call him Tim. I'm gonna refer to him as Tim from here on out. The only reason I'm mentioning that I was seeing him at that time is because that's why I was being affected so much, which you'll realize later at the end. There was an apartment that was downtown. It was literally right above a club. At 19, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. This is gonna be so much fun. I'm 19, I can finally drink. I live above a club, I'm going to college. This is amazing. This was a whole new experience for me, moving out, going to a big city. And I would say about 3 months of living there, everything was fine. Like there really wasn't anything that started happening. So at the very beginning, where I really start to notice things is in the daytime. Believe it or not, the very first time I started feeling anything, hearing anything, and actually started getting scared was in the daytime. It was the middle of the day. I remember being home alone. I didn't have school that day. I didn't have work that day. And it was literally like 12 in the afternoon. At this point, I had already become super close with my downstairs neighbors. It was these two girls, and they had moved in, I think a couple weeks after I had moved in, but they were still getting settled in. We were really close with them. I definitely would have considered them some of my best friends in the times that I had lived there. So where I lived was a building that used to be a house. So everything used to be one, and they just kind of sectioned it off into different apartments. So I had the entire top floor, but I also had a mudroom. So after you went up the first flight of stairs, you had my one neighbor who none of us ever talked to. We had the two girls who lived right beside them. And then our door was next to that. And you walked into our door, we had like a mudroom. It was just a decent sized area, and we typically kept our shoes. And then we had a whole nother flight to go up. So I would take like 3 flights of stairs to get up to my condo. And then we had the entire length of the building, so it was a 2-bedroom condo. So I heard what sounded like furniture being moved downstairs. I could literally hear like a couch or something being like pushed against the floor, and it was loud, and it sounded like it was in my mudroom, which obviously nothing would be going on in my mudroom because it's just me home. There's no couch being moved down there. There's no furniture down there at all. It's just shoes. So I assumed that it was my neighbors who are finally getting a couch. So I think I'm gonna go downstairs and help them. Go downstairs, and I open the door, and I look out my main door, and their door is literally like right beside mine, and nobody's out there. So I paused for a second, and it's like, there's no way that I just randomly heard that. Like, it was clear as day. And then after I paused for a second, I heard the sound again, but this time it was up in my unit. Like somebody was moving a couch directly across my floor from my stairs to my kitchen. It was clearly happening in my apartment. So I slowly creaked up the stairs, going up the flight slowly. The sound was getting louder and louder. It was literally like I was gonna look over those stairs and see people pushing a couch across my floor. And once I reached the top, the sound was back below me again. And it was clear as day. I could tell when it was above me. I could tell when it was below me. So I texted my neighbors and asked them if something was going on or if they heard that weird sound. Neither of them were home at this point. We're gonna call the one girl Jackie and we're gonna call the other girl Haley. As the day went on, I started to hear footsteps. If I was in the bathroom, I could clearly hear. Now keep in mind, this is happening in broad daylight. This is happening 12 in the afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was not nighttime. And I'm the only person home. Because we lived above a club, we had pretty good soundproof floors and walls, so hearing sounds even from my neighbors was basically impossible. I could clearly make out that this was happening in my apartment. I remember being in the bathroom and hearing someone walking by the door, and it sounded like they were pacing. And I remember just sitting in my bathroom like, my doors are locked, my doors are always locked, nobody can get up here. Even if they go up the fire escape, that window is always locked. Like there's no way. There's no way somebody's in my apartment right now. And when I would go out and actually open the door, the footsteps stopped. But anytime I went to my bedroom or anytime I went to the bathroom where I had a door closed or I had some separation between me and the next room, I could hear footsteps. I could hear furniture moving. And it was the most eerie feeling to ever feel. And the fact that it was happening in the daytime was really freaking me out, because I kind of figured, you know, if this kind of paranormal stuff is going to happen, I feel like you always hear that it happens at night. It's literally the daytime. That happened pretty much the entire day. When my neighbors did come home, I described the sound to them. They said that they hadn't heard anything like that, but they'll keep an ear out, or if they notice somebody like creeping around the building, they'll let me know, because I was starting to feel like I was going crazy, and it literally has only been a couple of hours. I don't know how much time had gone by where like that was happening. I just know that it was happening more and more frequently, and it would start happening later at night. So one of the things that started happening was in my bedroom, I had my bed kind of in the corner to the front window that faced out to the street. So at night, I started to have a really tough time falling asleep. It'd be time to go to bed and I'd instantly be wide awake and I wouldn't be able to fall asleep. And I was having such a hard time to fall asleep. I don't know if it was anxiety, I don't know if it was something else happening, but I felt wide awake. So I would stay up late and just do schoolwork or just randomly watch videos. Like I could not fall asleep. And I wasn't hearing any sounds at night at this point. That was just happening in the daytime, which is also kind of weird. But then when I looked at him, his arms were like straight up in the air. Like if you're laying down, your arms would be down at your side, but his arms were straight up in the air. And I went to push his arms down thinking, like, this is really strange. I'm just gonna put these down. And I could not move them. Like they were stiff as a board. And then out of nowhere, he was freaking out, screaming that he can't wake up. And I literally remember just freezing, like, what is going on? Eventually, Tim did wake up. He was saying that he had like a nightmare and that he couldn't wake up and it was like super strange. And I just remember thinking like, okay, so I can't sleep. You're stuck in a sleep. What is going on here? So after that had happened, I eventually had moved the bed, figuring maybe it's the area of the room. After I had moved it from that corner, I didn't really have any sleeping problems, but I did start noticing at night that the cat that I had at the time she wasn't a very active cat. She didn't really do much. She was like a 50-pound kitty. Like she was a big girl. And she wasn't very active, but she started to go a little nuts where she would look at the wall and start attacking the wall. And, you know, at night she would try to like sit on top of me almost as if like protecting me. At least that's how it felt. And she started like running around crazy, which for a cat that doesn't do anything, and she's not like a kitten, she was like an old cat, It was very strange to see. There would be some nights where, you know, I'd be watching TV and I'd be sitting the way I'm sitting now, where one leg is crossed sitting on the couch and the other leg is dangling, and I would feel like a cold slither. Like it would literally feel like a snake, and I could feel the cold like this, and I could literally feel it slithering across my foot. I remember the one time Tim and I were watching TV and I literally like sucked in a breath like it was ice cold, and I pulled my foot up and I looked over at Tim like, holy crap, did you feel that? He was staring at the TV and just kept saying like, act like you don't notice it. Just act like you don't notice it. Just keep watching the show. So we just sat there acting like that never happened and just kept watching the TV show, trying to act normal like we didn't notice anything, where on the inside I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. It was starting to come to it where I was sleeping with the lights on. I could not sleep at night. The second the lights went out, it just felt eerie, it felt weird. I wasn't really hearing noises, but I was definitely feeling like a dark presence, and it didn't have to move anything, it didn't have to touch anything, but it felt like this really heavy darkness, and it freaked me out. It wasn't even making sounds, but I could feel it, like it was just sitting there watching. I started sleeping with the lights on like I had mentioned, but I still felt that presence. It was just a whole lot easier to have the lights on in case something did happen. I could like peek my eyes open and, you know, nothing could fool me. You know, the darkness couldn't make me see something I didn't actually see. Eventually I'd gotten my dog Dexter. Dexter was just a little puppy, so he was very active, but he was a very loving dog. There wasn't anybody he didn't like. He loved everybody. And at night, Dexter, I would be sleeping and I would feel him crawl on my chest the same way that my cat did, and I'd hear him growl, and he'd be growling at something at the end of my feet. Now, none of my pets had ever gone to Tim and done anything like that to Tim. It's always been protecting me, which freaked me out even more because that made me start to think like, what did I do? I remember the one time we were downstairs talking to our neighbors. We were all kind of in a circle facing each other, and we were all just talking, and then I remember looking down and I saw like a really pointed shoe, and it looked like a little kid's shoe, like an old, really old styled shoe that they would wear like years and years ago, where they had like super pointy toes for their dress shoes, but it was like the size for a kid. And it was just one. You could clearly make out the heel, then there was a line where the shoe hadn't touched, and then the rest of the shoe. And I remember looking at it, and then I looked up and I was like, does anybody else see that? Was that always there? Kaylee was quick to go and wipe it up, and we were all kind of silent for a minute, like, I don't remember if that was there or not. Like, I don't know what that is. It's weird that there was just one. But as we kept talking and standing there, we looked back down and the shoe print was there again. And that was when it was like, okay, something is actually going on. You guys are starting to feel eerie in your apartment. You know, I feel so scared upstairs in my apartment, like something's happening, and it's happening in both units. Jackie and Kaylee started to feel things at night. They started to feel eerie in their apartment. I think that's another reason why I grew so close to Jackie and Kaylee, because they started feeling things, I started feeling things. Neither of us wanted to be home alone. We were all students except for Tim, and we worked, but we couldn't work full-time, so we would hang out a lot when we were alone. Like, I would be down in their apartment, which their apartment was less eerie than my apartment. That definitely made it easier when there was more people there, but it was also freaky because we were all experiencing this stuff. So I remember the one time I came home and I went up the stairs, and if you turned right, there was like another little like hallway, because the bedrooms and the bathroom were facing the one wall. The laundry room was straight down, and then it was like a railing, and the stairs came up this way. So I turned to go into my bedroom, and I remember just before I got into my bedroom, I had asked him if he would start cooking. And immediately after I said that, the fire alarm went off, and it reeked of smoke. And I remember standing there, looking up at the fire alarm, which was directly above me. There was no smoke, and it reeked. It was just felt like something was burning in the oven immediately after I said that. And I remember just staring at the alarm. We were both just staring at it like, are the other fire alarms going off? In this instance, we were hearing our alarm, and it's like, I don't think the other units' alarms are going off. So Tim had run down and had come back up and said, no, it's just our unit. Only this alarm is going off. And after he had said that, the smoke smell went away and the alarm stopped. I remember just standing there. This is becoming too much. This is really freaky. I can't sleep in here. I don't feel safe in here. Even in the daytime, I don't feel safe. Our neighbors are feeling something happening. That was strange. Something is wrong. And so we actually hired these like ghost investigator people, and they were from a different area, and they came all the way to where we were. And the first day they wanted to inspect it, so they came over around midnight, 2 a.m. and it was these two guys, I forget what their names were, but they came in and they said that they wanted to make sure that we weren't like messing with them, like this was real. This was kind of like an inspection day where they're just gonna look around, they're gonna try to interrogate what might be here and see if it's true. So that's what they did. They came in. The one guy, I remember he asked me to hold my hands like this, and he placed his hands over me, and it felt like he was literally draining like the heat from my hands. I could feel it like leaving my hand and going into his hand. And I remember sitting there like, this is really weird. I was very skeptical. I always thought as a kid that this ghost stuff was like super cool and I would love to experience it, but being in it was terrifying, and I would never want to go through that again or wish that on anybody. But I was also really skeptical because I didn't want to believe that that's what was happening. I didn't want to believe that that was happening because that's something I can't see, that's something I don't know about, that's something I don't know how to control. And then these guys come in here and they're doing weird things, and it just all felt so new and so scary, and I just did not want to believe it. So they were walking around, they took pictures of the windows. They had a lady with them, I don't remember her name either. They wanted to take pictures of the windows, they needed to take pictures of the walls in case anything cracked or broke. And this is going back to like when the iPhone, I don't know, 4S was like a phone a good amount of people still used, I'm pretty sure. Because that's what that lady had. She had the iPhone 4S. And she went around and took pictures in all our windows. And I was kind of following her, and then Tim was staying with the guys. Our downstairs neighbors weren't there for the initial visit, but they are going to be present for the other ones that I'll talk about. But for this one, it was just myself and Tim. So I was following her around, just kind of seeing what she was doing, because once again, I was skeptical. I didn't want to believe that this was actually happening, and I didn't want them to drive more fear into me that I already had to sucker money out of me. And I really wanted to try and, you know, pay attention to everything that they were doing. Sorry about that, my camera died. I was following this lady around, and she went into my bedroom, and where my bed used to be before I moved it, where like I was having a tough time sleeping, she went to that window and she took a picture, and I watched her from the bedroom door, and she kind of gasped, and then she turned to me, looked back out the window, and she kind of like stood there frozen for a second, and then she pulled me over. So I come into the bedroom, I look at her phone. Literally, I've been watching her the whole time. Like, she had no time to sit there and edit anything. I looked at the picture, and I do still have it. It's somewhere on my laptop or on a USB drive. I'll have to look for it. But when you stand in front of a window when it's dark out, you can tell what your outline looks like. And she was the only person in that bedroom. And you could make out a body of people behind her. You could see people, and you could see more of their features than you could hers, which was really strange. And you could see like a tall guy, you could see like a little boy, there was like a few other people. And I remember looking at this like, oh my gosh, this is real. There is a whole group of people in my apartment. And then she pointed out the window and she said, do those trees look funny to you? And I looked out at the trees, and because it was winter at this time, there was no leaves on these trees. And I looked out, and it looked like skull faces. I look out that window every single day. I look out that window at night. I've never looked at those trees and seen the like skull faces. I could see big ones, I could see little ones. It just looked like skulls everywhere. And I remember feeling in that moment like kind of numb to what is happening, because it's like, okay, this is confirmation. What I think is happening is literally happening. And also a mix of like, holy crap, what do we do? So we went back out to where the other guys were, and they were telling us that they could definitely feel like a presence. It wasn't very heavy when they first came in. And when we were waiting for them, I didn't feel anything. And even when they first got there, I didn't feel anything. But it was almost like immediately after that picture, it was like boom, you could just feel like this weight, like they all showed up at the same time or something. It was really, really creepy. So they didn't do too much that first day. They just kind of like walked around recording stuff. They were talking. The one guy who did that weird hand thing was like feeling around, and they wanted to talk to our neighbors. And they kind of walked around their apartment too. They felt around, they asked them questions, and then they said that they would come back, that they know this is real, they know that we're not playing with them, that this isn't a joke, and that the next night they're gonna come back and they're gonna have more equipment with them. They're gonna do some research on the place as well, see if they can find some history, and they'll get back to us. So kind of left it at that. Nothing really crazy happened that I can remember. So the next night came, and my downstairs neighbors and Jackie's twin brother, Jesse we'll call him, came over as well, and all of us were upstairs. We were just kind of like huddled in a group, like we didn't really know what to do. And these guys were setting up all these equipment. They had these cameras and all these video stuff and all this like weird equipment I'd never seen before. They had these recording things, they had motion lights, like they were literally setting up the entire condo. Once they were set up, they let us kind of test the equipment, like the motion sensor lights. Like we got to watch like how close you had to get to the motion sensor for us to set it off. We watched to see how long it would go off for. Like nobody had anything in their hands, so to my knowledge, I don't believe anybody was setting up timers and pressing any buttons to change the lights. They looked pretty basic. They honestly looked like something that I could have bought at the dollar store. But at this point, I also wasn't really that skeptical at this point because of what happened the night prior. I did start to believe like this is really some paranormal stuff. In my second bedroom, because it was a 2-bedroom condo, the one guy who did the weird hand stuff and my neighbors and the twin brother went into that room, and I remember me and the other guy were watching the screen on the TV because they set up a camera in that room. That room was completely empty. It was bare. There was literally no furniture in there. I could see that Kaylee, Jackie, and Jesse were all lined up against the one wall. They were just sitting there. They were just sitting there close together. There was literally no furniture in there, so they were sitting on the floor. And the guy who did the weird hand stuff was like pacing the room and saying things to interrogate it and like stomping his feet and moving his hands. And then out of like thin air, there was like a big white feather. I watched on the camera just appear right up in front of the screen, so big, and then disappear. And it was like, oh my gosh, there's nothing in that room for a feather to have just appeared out of. And then all these little like orbs is what they called them, but these little white dots started to appear on the screen, and they were telling me that these were like spirits. And that guy who's in that room trying to do weird stuff, he all of a sudden looked like he got shoved. And then my neighbors and the twin brother like booked it out, like, oh my gosh, I'm not staying in there anymore. And that guy lifted the back of his shirt and we could see handprints on his back, which literally was like, I don't know how they could have done that. I don't know. I didn't look at his back beforehand, but that is really, really weird. They walked around, they started recording things. You could hear on the recording, they started screaming fire and started screaming getting out. They had like a DSLR, so all the lights were out. He stood where my door was, facing out to where you could see the railing, and he took a picture. And he showed me what appeared on his picture, and it was literally flames. Flames were in this, like the picture wasn't like moving or anything. It was a still photo. I could see my doorway, see the railing, and I could see flames literally like covering everything on that railing in the hallway. And that is the exact spot I was standing when it reeked of smoke and the fire alarm was going off. And they were telling me that when they had researched the building that we were living in, that there was a war on this street, and that a lot of these buildings are either redone or they're old, and that this building, they kept part of the old building and then just added new additions onto it. but they kept a good portion of the building that was still good, which I didn't end up researching that after to see if that was true. I honestly just at that point was like, whatever they say is probably true. I still have not researched that. And then we had moved on to the motion sensors. This is all like still within the same night. In my bedroom, we were sitting, all of us, like against the one wall at the far end. My bedroom was huge. Like you literally weren't even going to get close enough to the motion sensor light to start it off for like a little bit. It was a big room, and we all sat at the one end, and they started asking it questions like, turn the light on if you're here, and then the light would turn on. And what was weird was when we tested it where we went up to the light, it would take like 30 seconds for the light to shut off once we moved away, but it would shut off immediately after this demon thing answered. They were asking it more questions. They were asking why it was here, and I don't really remember everything, but I know that what we had discovered was that this spirit was attached to somebody. And I remember asking like, are they attached to me? Because like I'm literally having night terrors. There was points where I actually woke up and it looked like I had initials carved into like my back. You know, if you have like a calligraphy pen, how fancy you can make your font. I had an A and then a dot and then an X, and it was like done really fancy and very thin, and it was on my back. And that had happened. I don't remember when that happened. I don't know if it was after the first night that they came there. I don't know if it was a few nights before that, but I remember at this night that they had motion sensors set up, that had already happened. And I was assuming that something was attached to me because I'm the only one that got like initials carved into them, and I still don't know what AX was. But the spirit had said that they weren't attached to me, but that they didn't like me. Remember, we were doing like yes or no kind of questions, like turn the light on if you have an issue with her, you know, turn the light on if you're attached to her, turn the light on if you're attached to Tim, those types of questions. So we had discovered that this spirit demon thing that was answering the motion sensor light was attached to Tim, and it didn't like me because I was with Tim. So this spirit, which what got even creepier later on was that Tim named this spirit. Tim named this spirit Jessica, and he started to like threaten me with this spirit. And mind you, this was a very toxic, very abusive, unhealthy relationship that I was in. There were so many red flags, but I was just so mentally not okay and so manipulated that I wasn't even registering like, that's weird. Why are you threatening me with a spirit? But anyways, that could be like a whole different story time. We had also learned that apparently the other spirits there didn't really know that they were there, that they were just kind of living out their life, and that's why we would hear walking, we would feel their presence. But the bad feeling that I would feel and the scary presence and the thing that felt like it watched me and like would hurt me was the spirit that didn't like me that was attached to Tim. And a little background really quick that I probably should have mentioned in the beginning of, that was my hip, sorry, old age. Probably something I should have mentioned in the beginning was that Tim had told me, and his mom had confirmed to me back at the very beginning when I first met Tim, that he would see things as a little kid. His mom vouched that when he was young, he would talk about the man that stood at the end of his bed. And like he had a sister born before him who he had never met because she died when she was 2. That he knew her and like would talk about her, and like apparently he offered to like share his head with her so that she could live too. Like stuff that I literally should have seen as like, this is weird, but didn't. My fault. So it really wasn't too much of a surprise that this thing was attached to him, because it's like, oh my gosh, like go figure. The guys were trying to tell us about the different types of ghosts, and I do quotes because like I don't believe in ghosts, I believe in demons, and that these demons come to you pretending to be things that they're not, because they'll come to you as good ghosts, they'll come to you as this ghost or that ghost, and like just all in all, it's just a flat out demon, and they're all on the same level, they're all dangerous, they're all bad. But they were trying to tell us the different types of ghosts. The ones that you see in the paranormal activity movies, like yes, they can touch you and stuff, but they're not always bad, but there's like another level that's worse, and that the ghost that's attached to Tim isn't the worst one, but is like the paranormal one. I don't remember the names for it. One of them started with an I and the other one started with a D, I'm pretty sure. I'll see if I can remember later and insert a clip of it. This was like 6-7 years ago, so I don't exactly remember. Eventually it was time to move. This place was too expensive, couldn't afford it, and a lot of scary, bad stuff was happening in this apartment. And it's really sad because around the end, it was almost like everything was just falling apart. Like everything was being pulled. Like my relationship with even my neighbors was being torn. Like the weirdest stuff was happening. Like there was so much aggression between everybody. And it was just like we all were becoming a lot more aggressive, a lot more angry. And it was really taking a toll on us in ways that, when I think back to it now, is really strange. Pretty much both of us were moving. They were moving, I was moving. Still in the same city, but like on a different end of it. And I remember I took videos when the place was empty. I remember I had a 4S phone, and I had filmed going up the stairs. I had filmed each of the rooms. For some reason, I just wanted to have a memory of what this place looked like. Even though it held so many bad memories, for some reason, I wanted to have memories of this place. Like a lot of stuff happened there. Like not even just like paranormal stuff. Like I was abused a lot in that place. Like a lot of some of the darkest stuff happened to me in that place. And for some reason, I wanted to keep a copy of what that place held, which was only bad stuff, which is so weird. And at that time I didn't register that like, this is weird. Why am I doing that? To climb these stairs anymore, or these stairs anymore. This wall, this hallway, spare bedroom, bathroom, this tub. Goodbye kitchen. And this dangerous fire escape. Goodbye to this bedroom that I love so much because it's huge. So had moved, about a month had gone by, and the sleeping thing happened again. We were in like a tiny little bedroom. We were staying at Tim's family's that had lived there, and the arm thing that Tim did happened again. And I remember thinking like, this is not happening. We are not doing this again. No, no, no. Did not stay at that place long. And at this point, this was some of my most saddest times in life for so many reasons. Financially, it was really rough. Tim couldn't hold a job, didn't want to work, and I worked at a grocery store. I could barely afford anything, and he was robbing me of money, and any money he did make, he was blowing away on drugs or whatever he wanted to do. So there was a Chinese restaurant that was just like over a block that I was eating at a lot, and had expressed to this woman that like we need to find a new place because Tim's family doesn't want to keep us there anymore. And she said, I have no heat upstairs, like it's like nobody's up there, and like I don't even really go up there, but like if you want, I can give you access to that upstairs through the back, and you can live up there for free, so you can find a place to stay. This woman was so sweet. I will always remember her for this because she took, like for free, she offered a place to stay to like a complete stranger. Now it was literally the middle of winter. It was freezing and there was no heat. Basically how cold it was outside was how cold it was inside, just without the wind chill. I ended up having to get a space heater, and I would have to heat up the bathroom before using it. And like there was no kitchen, it was just a bedroom, so like I really didn't cook for myself. I was at the point where I wasn't even really eating because I couldn't afford to eat. All my money was just going to all these other things to try and like cover bills and to cover debt and cover all these things that Tim wouldn't cover. And it was so cold and freezing in there that Tim just went and stayed at some other girl's place, and I was left in this tiny cold room by myself. But the fact that Tim wasn't there, I didn't feel that creepy presence. I wasn't having weird things happen to me. I wasn't waking up with any scratches or marks on me, which had been happening previously. I couldn't sleep because it was literally freezing, and that's kind of where like my sleep issues started, because I started blacking out while standing up because I wasn't sleeping. And that was starting to get really hard on me, and I would start to see things while being awake. But I think that was purely for the fact that I was going days without sleep because I couldn't sleep because I was so cold. And I remember the one time I came to the bedroom, and this is around the point where I was like, F you, Tim, want nothing to do with you. And remember, he would threaten me with this spirit that he called Jessica, which is what he was doing before I was in this, above this Chinese restaurant, because he really wasn't there. So he had gone in there, and when I had walked in, I started to look around the room because I was noticing that he had put symbols on my whiteboard, symbols in my notebooks. Like there was these weird symbols like all over stuff of mine. And I thought to go into my laptop, and Tim wasn't there. So Tim had shown up when I wasn't there and had done this. And I went to my laptop history because Tim didn't have a laptop. And all in my history was curses on how to make somebody love you and how to make somebody stay with you. And like I remember just sitting there thinking like, this dude's doing this stuff on purpose. Like he is speaking to something that he shouldn't be speaking to, and he's literally trying to curse me. So I packed up everything, I quit my job, moved back home with my mom, and just started over, started fresh. All of that stuff like stopped immediately. I wasn't feeling a presence anymore. Even when I left my mom's and moved to the city that I'm in now, and to my student houses that I lived, none of that stuff happened anymore. Once I had completely disconnected from that person, all of like that really bad stuff just stopped. It just went away. It was no more. Something else that had happened in that process of moving and going to this city that I moved to, I was clearing out my phone, and those videos that I took of that apartment, it's like, I don't even know why I have these. Like, I'm gonna delete them. Those were the only things in my entire phone I couldn't delete. I could delete any other picture, I could delete any other video, I could delete any apps, but those videos that I took of that apartment, I could not delete. My phone would error out, it wouldn't let me do anything. I delete it and it would stay in my phone. And it stayed in my phone for years. I don't even know when I got it off or how I got it off, but it would not let me delete it, and it went from one phone to the next phone to the next phone. And I remember about a year after living in this city, you know, I had moved again because I moved to a different student house, and I was going through my stuff when I was reorganizing everything, and I found this box and I found these keys. I remember looking at these keys thinking like, why do I have these? What are these two? And then I remembered that these were the keys to the apartment that I left. I never returned them. I kept the keys to that apartment. Anything that was latching me onto that bad experience, like it was stuck to me. I couldn't delete videos off my phone of it. I kept the house keys and completely forgot about it. And like, it was weird, but it took me a long time to throw those keys out. And I don't know why. And I don't know why it took such a long time for my phone to let me delete those videos. Now, the things that kept happening to me even after that was the sleeping problems. The insomnia was getting worse. I was having night terrors, and it was getting worse and worse in that sense, where I was sleeping less and less. Nothing fixed my insomnia. Nothing fixed it. Nothing. It wasn't until I met my boyfriend now and started learning about Jesus and God, and, you know, being curious about this guy that he talks about and that, you know, everybody was talking about. I didn't grow up in a Christian home or anything like that. And the day I said the sinner's prayer, which I was under a big spiritual attack, like I was bawling my eyes out. I was on my kitchen floor. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like just, I was noticing that thoughts that were coming into my head weren't mine. And it was just a really scary time. Once again, that is a story all in itself, which I can share with you guys. That would be like my testimony. But that day that I said the sinner's prayer, like I slept like a baby that night. Even after being under extreme torment moments prior, and I never had another sleeping issue. If I have sleeping issues now, it's purely because I've got so much to do that I feel like I need to be up to do stuff, but otherwise I go to bed, I sleep. Even if you're not in that type of bad situation or practicing that stuff anymore, if you don't cut that tie, it will keep happening to you. Even if you weren't the one to start it and you weren't going and doing all that weird stuff, if it was put on you, if you were cursed, if you were attached in some way, even unintentionally, it will latch onto you until you break it. And the only way I've ever had that broken was saying the sinner's prayer and living for Jesus. Honestly, if I had known that before and I had known that it was that easy, I would have done it. I would not have stayed in such a bad situation for so long, and I wouldn't have allowed myself to be attacked as badly as I was. I would have released myself from that so much sooner, but I didn't know until many years later. So if you are in that situation, whether you believe in Jesus or not, you don't need to believe in him for him to be there. You don't need to believe in him for him to be strong. You don't need to believe in him for these demons for it to work against demons, because even they know he's there and it will work. But that is my crazy ghost story. I really only have that one that's like ghost wise, but if you guys do want to hear any of the other stories that I had mentioned in this one, like the night terrors, testimony, stuff like that, let me know down in the comments and I can most definitely make that a video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope maybe this brought you some peace by knowing how you can get out of it, or if not, I hope this helps you not get into stuff like this. I hope you see this more as like a warning than like, whoa, that's cool, because like it really wasn't cool. And I don't want anybody to go through that. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much. Bye.